All right, let's get right into it. There's this really interesting paradox, at the heart of how we talk about certain relationships. When most people hear about this dynamic, their brain immediately jumps to one word: humiliation. But what if that's just one tiny piece of a much, much bigger picture? And that brings us to the big question for this entire explainer. Can a dynamic where one partner is with other people, with the full knowledge and consent of their main partner, actually exist without humiliation being the main ingredient? Let's really dig in and see. This right here really lays out the whole conflict perfectly. Over on the left, you've got the stereotype we all know: degradation, submission, shame. But then, on the right, you see what thousands of couples say they actually experience. They talk about celebration, a deeper connection, and this feeling called compersion, which is basically being happy because your partner is happy. It completely flips the script. So let's start with this huge misunderstanding. How did we even get here? How did this one narrow and pretty negative idea become the only story we seem to tell? Well, it turns out it didn't just happen by accident. It was really a perfect storm of a few different things over time. I mean, the word itself started out centuries ago as an insult, designed specifically to shame men. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the adult entertainment industry just latched onto that humiliation angle because, hey, it's got a lot of dramatic tension, right? And that created this powerful feedback loop that we're still in today, where the media keeps showing it one way, which reinforces what we all assume is true. Okay, so if humiliation isn't the main event for everyone, then what is going on? Let's pull back the curtain and really unpack the psychology of what's driving these other, different dynamics. For a lot of these relationships, the entire emotional foundation is built on this idea called compersion. As you can see, it's that feeling of joy you get from watching your partner have a great time with someone else. People often call it the opposite of jealousy. So instead of feeling threatened, you feel genuinely happy for them. Think about it like this. It's that same warmth you feel when your best friend gets a huge promotion at work. Their win feels like your win. And compersion is really just the beginning. There are a bunch of other key psychological drivers at play. There's something researchers call erotic witness consciousness, which, in simple terms, is the intense arousal you can get just from the act of watching your partner experience pleasure. Then you have the fantasy of abundance, which is a total game changer, and this incredible sense of intimacy that's built on just radical, total honesty and acceptance. And this right here illustrates that mindset shift perfectly, especially that fantasy of abundance idea. The humiliation frame comes from a place of scarcity. The thinking is, I'm not enough. That taps right into our deepest insecurities. But the abundance frame, it flips that on its head. It says, wow, my partner is so amazing and desirable that other people notice, and I'm the one they choose to come home to. It takes something that could feel like a threat and turns it into a massive source of pride. And look, this isn't just some fringe theory. The research actually backs this up. This quote from Dr. Justin Lemmeler at the world-renowned Kinsey Institute pretty much says it all. His big studies on fantasy found that, yeah, for some people, humiliation is part of the appeal. But for a whole lot of others, it's just not there. They're drawn to it for completely different and often very positive reasons. And here's something that's really important to get. We can't paint this with one broad brush. It's not a single thing. It really exists on a wide spectrum, with all sorts of different flavors and setups that have absolutely nothing to do with humiliation. So let's look at a few common ways this plays out. You've got the hot wife dynamic, for instance, which is all about celebrating the wife's desirability and freedom, and her husband feels immense pride in that. Then there are dynamics that are purely centered on compersion, where the biggest thrill for both partners is just that shared joy. For others, it's all about erotic witnessing. The arousal comes just from watching. And then some couples just see it as a shared adventure, a way to explore new things together. Now, this all sounds really interesting in theory, but how do people actually pull this off in the real world without stumbling into all those traps of jealousy and humiliation? Well, the answer is a really, really sophisticated communication playbook. Let me tell you, couples who make this work do not just wing it. They start with intense pre-negotiation, talking through every single motivation, every boundary, every fear before anything happens. They specifically agree on the emotional tone, that this is about celebration and respect. Then, during an experience, they have signals for real-time check-ins to make sure everyone's okay. And crucially, they talk about it afterward to process everything, strengthen their bond, and figure out what works for next time. It's truly a masterclass in communication. So When you take a step back from that old, tired stereotype and you look at everything we've just talked about, the psychology, the research, the way people actually live, a totally new and way more nuanced understanding starts to emerge. Which brings us right back to where we started. Can this dynamic actually exist without humiliation? And based on everything we've seen, the answer is a clear, definitive yes. The stereotype isn't the whole story. It's not even close. The reality is that these dynamics, the ones not based on humiliation, aren't just possible. They're actually pretty common, they're sustainable, and they are grounded in real psychological principles like compersion. It's the lived experience for so many couples who find it brings them joy and an even deeper connection. And that kind of leaves us with a bigger question to chew on, doesn't it? If we've gotten this one aspect of human relationships so wrong for so long, what other parts of how we connect with each other have we totally oversimplified just because we accepted a simple stereotype instead of looking just a little bit deeper?